So now I'd like to talk a little bit about the pivot that we have. Now, the pivot is a very, very useful tool for modeling. And simply said, what it allows me to do is it allows me to move the center point of my transform to any given point, polygon, edge, or even outside as a reference point. It is not, however, going to change the center of the object. So to enable it, I have to be in my Enable Transform Manipulator mode, and I hold down the Alt key. Now by holding down the Alt key, I can now drag the pivot to any given point, or edge, or polygon, or holding the middle mouse button, I can drag it out anywhere in space. It will automatically snap when using the left mouse buttons to given components. So, where is this useful? Well, let's take, for example, this polygon. Now, if I were to duplicate it and maybe rotate it, I get this. Maybe not particularly useful. However, with the pivot tool, I can simply snap to the edge and now rotate around that edge. In fact, it's doing nothing else than using that edge as the center. Now, if I go into reference mode, not only will it use that edge, or maybe let's just go into our Alt key, there we go, and let's go, for example, to this point. It's now using, as a reference mode, it automatically takes the coordinates of that point. Or for example, if I go to an edge, it automatically takes the coordinate system of that point. So if I wish to, for example, translate along an edge, I simply put my pivot on that edge, and I now have the ability to translate exactly along that edge. This will, of course, work with all of our transform, scale, and rotation tools. So another common one would be to scale towards a given point. So if I just go here and scale towards it, there we go. Like I said before, it's also possible with the middle mouse button to drag it out anywhere into space. So for example, if I wanted to scale this polygon towards a given point in space, I simply drag it out. Furthermore, we can also, let's say, draw, for example, another object. And let's grab this polygon, and let's take our pivot. Now, we can also enable our snapping tools, for example, maybe to snap to points. So now what I can do is by dragging my pivot, I can snap, for example, to individual points. Or maybe if I were to do it maybe along a curve. So I can now snap my pivot along a construction curve, for example. So this allows me to use construction objects for the building of my models. Finally, the pivot, we have the ability to lock it. If I go on here, you'll find that there's a little arrow underneath. Clicking on that allows me to lock the pivot in place. So now, no matter what I do, for example, go into rotate for the whole object maybe, or I select a polygon over here, it will always be locked to that one given point. If I wish to undo that, I can simply go into my pivot tool and unlock it, or even